So at 65, I have been reborn because I learned how to create a new blueprint, and you can do the same thing. So anyway, we went to Egypt, and I found out that that blueprint is ageless. If you look at, we went into all these temples and tombs, and the hieroglyphics are not just artwork. They are actually showing us a blueprint for life. And Remy has lived, his family has lived in the caves in Petra for 500 years. His grandmother just passed away. She was 102, 103. And that's how they live. They live in balance and harmony with nature, with the cosmos, with quantum physics, and they survive without any of, you're talking about being materialistic. He has no material, he doesn't have TVs and refrigerators and all those. He lives in the caves and he lives just fine. And they live a peaceful, harmonious life together in that community. And that just showed me that if we can create that balance and harmony, and how do you do that? Well, you have to balance your body, you have to balance your mind, and you have to balance your spirit. I have been taught to balance the body, to look at the body is, that's, we go through anatomy and physiology. It's all about the body. But then I also had this other part of me that was talking about spirit. That was my father and going to church and all this. And those two things, the body is very scientific, and spirituality, I thought, was not scientific. But I am learning that science can explain spirituality. And that is what we're going to talk about here because, in Chinese medicine, they first honor the spirit, then that moves to the mind, and then we move to the body. Now, I was going at it backwards, but the problem is it's very hard to make the body whole if you don't manage your mind and if you don't connect to the spirit, to a higher power, however you want to talk about that. And then you can also talk about this spirit in a scientific way. And that's where quantum physics comes along. And this is what we're going to get to as we go along. But this ageless blueprint, and when you talk about a blueprint, and there's a blueprint for everything. Creation follows a blueprint. And we're going to talk about this sacred geometry. There's a great, great uh, show called Sacred Geometry. I mean, it's mind blowing. Is that all of creation followed a blueprint based on these five shapes, and they are called ethereal shapes. They're sacred shapes. But all of creation followed a blueprint. Okay. So anything that was created has to have a blueprint. Okay. You have a genetic blueprint and it made you. But where did that blueprint come from? That blueprint, it came from energy. We're all energy. And I don't want to get ahead of myself. But you can create whatever blueprint you want. You can create the rest of your life. You just have to be conscious of your blueprint that you have now, figure out what you want to change in that blueprint, be clear about what you want to change and how you want to change it. Clarity is what gives you the blueprint. So I did this course called Reality Creator, and he said, first you have to become aware of your habits, your thoughts, your actions. Then you have to be clear about what thoughts, behaviors, and actions are not serving you anymore. And you have to have new thoughts, behaviors, and actions. Okay. So that is how you change your blueprint. Okay. Because that blueprint you have is hardwired. And I'm telling you, when you become aware of all of the things that you're doing subconsciously, and you bring it up to the conscious mind, then you can start to change it because now you're aware. Because you're doing 90% of what you're doing unconsciously. You get up, you take your shower, you brush your teeth, you go get your coffee, you get in the car, you go to the office, you get irritated at the office, you start talking about your coworkers at the office, you go home, you tell your husband or your wife about them, then you watch TV, you eat dinner, and nothing ever changes. And you wonder why nothing changes because you're not aware of the routines that you have. Now, there's routines can be good and they can be beneficial to you. Our routines can really lead you to a path of nowhere where your life becomes meaningless and boring because you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. So if you want something different, you can't be connected to your past and you can't predict your future because you're thinking, oh, tomorrow's going to be the same way. So what what these reality creator or there's several of them, but what you have to do is you have to take this present moment and you have to start changing from right now, and you have to try and disconnect from the past and not predict what you think is going to happen in the future, and just let life happen and you start to create what you want your future to be. All right. So that's what we're gonna do. Now I will tell you, in December when I went to Egypt, we went for 3 weeks. Now in October is when I took this course to try and change my reality because I did not want to have a future of where I was going to be feeble, get knee replacements, get stents in my heart, start to slow down as I got older. I just didn't want that. I saw that in my parents, the last 10 or 15 years of their life, they took a course downhill. I said, I want to ascend into my quote unquote golden years. So I decided to do that. And what I had to do was to get over a lot of my fears. I had to disconnect from this future of being in assisted living and having Alzheimer's, because that's what people are fearful of. And what you are afraid of is bound to come upon you. If you keep thinking about what you don't want, it's more than likely you're going to get it because whatever you focus on, that's what you are going to create in your reality. So I decided I'm not going to do that. So I decided in October of 2024, I was going to be a different person. It didn't take it didn't take 20 years of therapy to change. It took a decision at that present moment that I was going to change. And I got over my fears. And one of the fears that I had was I can't leave my office for 3 weeks. I'm not going to be able to make any money. What am I going to do? I got over that fear. I wanted to go to Egypt because I wanted to understand spirituality. They saw spirituality as a science. They thought that science was seen spirituality and spirituality was unseen science. So as a scientist and someone spiritual raised up in a Baptist minister's household, I wanted to see how they connected, and it was life changing for me. Okay. And that's when I came up with that name, Ageless Blueprint. I really didn't know all of the different meanings it could have, but I learned that they had a blueprint. It's called the Laws of Mayat. I can tell you about all those. And I'll tell you that uh, what you learn over is that they were not worshiping different gods. They saw that there was one source, there was one God, and that all of nature is just an expression of God. And that is a beautiful way of thinking about this, is that everything is an expression of God. All of the beautiful flowers that are and the all of the blooming bushes that are going on, that's all an expression of God, and you are an expression of God. And so that really changed the way I think about almost everything. And the courage it took for me to go over there for 3 weeks and not worry about anything, not worry about my patients, not worried about my finances. It was very freeing. It was very liberating, is to actually do what something that I felt in my gut I needed to do. And I did it, and it just felt so right. So that is why I'm talking about this Ageless Blueprint. So next, I think we have another commercial coming up here soon. But next, I'm going to tell you about what to expect, kind of the things that I want to talk about going forward. At least for the first 4 episodes, I really want to talk about the foundations. I've been called the spit doctor, the hormone doctor, because I really, really believe in salivary testing to answer some questions that I couldn't answer in a 4-year residency and in 7 years of practice in OBGYN. And I actually did a Zoom meeting for this platform that tries to teach doctors. And the person who I was talking to was actually from Croatia, and I did my little spiel about salivary testing, and she was like, "Oh wow, I've never heard about this in Croatia, and this sounds so exciting." And it is. And I am so grateful for technology that I can now talk about some of these fundamentals. And instead of it being one patient at a time, or if I go to a seminar and I speak to 200 people at a time, I'm hoping that over the course of time, that my information about salivary testing and stress and hormone balance, someone can reference that 40 years from now. Now, I may be living 40 years from now, who knows? But just in case, I have this, on file. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about this. So, hey, Rebel, it's almost 9:35, right? And so it's another commercial. And I want to make sure if there's any questions, you can stop me like 5 minutes before we end, and I'll try and answer some questions. And then when we come back, I'll talk more about what you can expect in the future.
Sounds wonderful. Let's go to a commercial break.
Okay.
We are going to a quick break, so stay with us as we explore the Ageless Blueprint right here on W4HC Radio and Talk 4 TV. An ancient secret with a modern twist